every move we make in this small space. There's no room for mistakes. One signal missed and the trust starts to fade. One voice unheard and the plan's misled. This isn't big box silence. We're built on constant guidance. Whiteboards, hands off spoken truth. That's how we bulletproof the proof. Stronger together, no wires crossed, no voices fading, no message lost. Say it, show it, write it down. That's how we keep this story loud. In the breakdown, I've seen the cost. Sales slip away when direction's lost. It's the 2-minute huddle, it's the notes in the margin. It's culture built daily, not left to harden. Don't tell me it's too small to fail. Even tight crews can derail. Clear cadence, clear command. That's how small teams withstand. Stronger together, no wires crossed, no voices fading, no message lost. Say it, show it, write it down. That's how we keep this story now. Mondays focus, Fridays tone. We never leave our team alone. Crisis calls, our culture wins. We fight confusion, clarity wins.
Wow.
Wow, is right.
It's the small things said that will pave the way. 5 phrases to echo, 1 mission to keep strong words awake while weak ones slay.
Greg, does any of that sound familiar?
I'll tell you what, that is awesome, Joel. I was getting excited.
That's literally, it's what you're covering today. The robots are that smart where they can take your outline and write a song.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I enjoyed that one tremendously, too. That was interesting. That was great.
It's a little too hard for me, but
Oh,
it is different.
The lyrics were fantastic, though. We're not going to leave our teams alone. I think I heard that. That was great.
That's your words, man.
That's it.
Literally, it's just taking your words.
Yeah, I love it.
We live in weird times, man. I mean, it's just freaking crazy. I spent some time this past weekend, I think, and had a cousin visiting who was actually an actual no-joke musician, spent years on the road. And they had a debacle, if you will. You know, they were going to go out and hunt some hogs. So they took their thermals and, you know, went out on our deer buggies, the electric golf cart, you know, kind of lifted and had a flat. All they got were some, I forget what they kill, possums or armadillos,
Okay.
like, and it's like, it was just a debacle. So I just said, hey, I explained the story to the robot. It wrote a country song. And my cousin's like, are you serious right now? I mean, he's literally a songwriter,
Right.
you know, and it was like, his mind was blown. So we spent another hour making Glenn Campbell music, you know, like in the style of Glenn Campbell. And his mind was blown. But yeah, it's crazy, crazy days we live in. Hey, everybody, we're finally on episode 5.
Finally.
I know we've had some hiccups. Some things kind of came up, but Greg is here today and he is going to enlighten us all on how to communicate better within our organization. Internal communications, correct, Greg?
That is correct. Yes. Internal. You know, I went to a conference a while ago, one of these management conferences. And anytime I go to one of those conferences, you know, you're sitting through 2-3 days of stuff. You're just trying to find your nuggets that you can take with you and that you can put into practice. And one of the big things I heard at one of these events was culture kills strategy. And for a second, it kind of sounded backwards to me. Like, well,
Yeah.
you don't want your culture to kill your strategy. And then that's the point. You know, it's like you can have the greatest strategy in the world, but if your culture is not good, throw your strategy out the window. It'll never get executed.
Yeah.
So that's a lot
right.
of what we're talking about here today is just how do we internally communicate both the actual topics that you need to get covered and the tasks you need to get done, but additionally, how that helps your culture and how that helps your team work together and just communicate better overall, and then ultimately result in more sales and more profits.
That's what we're all after. More sales, more profits.
Absolutely.
More money, more problems. I'm sorry. More money, less problems.
There you go. Oh,
all right. So,
yeah.
hey, so just real quick, Greg, I just want everybody to know that, I've had some technical difficulties in the past. And whenever I see that little antenna of death pop up, I could just freeze and then disappear for a minute. I will be back. I promise.
All
I
right.
don't know why it does that, but hopefully we've got that ironed out. So I'm just gonna be quiet now. And if I have any questions, feel free to allow me to interrupt.
Yeah. Please feel free. All right. Well,
okay, man.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Retail Mastery Series. I'm sorry about the delays. I'm really excited to be here today. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Greg Turner. I've been in the retail industry for, 20 plus years in big box, small shops, boutique, middle-sized, have a lot of retail experience. So I'm really excited to share what I've learned because I've seen a lot of different communication strategies. And I think the tips I'll give you today will really help your business and help you make progress towards more sales. In small teams, communication can either build a culture of trust or create confusion, kind of like I'm talking about with the culture kill strategy. And, most of our teams are going to be on the smaller side in the bigger retail environment when you've got big box stores layered in and all these places that have 80, 90, 100 employees. Most of us are going to have single digits up to maybe 30 or 40. And I believe that actually communication is more important in those smaller groups than it is in the larger groups. Today I just want to walk you through real world techniques that'll help close knit retail teams communicate better. The idea is we want to boost morale, we want to boost speed, we want to boost service. We just want to make it a better experience overall for the customers and for ourselves and our employees. So miscommunication, there's a real cost to miscommunication. It's very easy to just push to the side and not put in the work we need to do to make sure we're consistently doing it. But, according to a study, I was looking things up, trying to figure out, okay, what's a good stat to share? And Forbes actually did a study that said 86% of employees cite poor communication as a key reason things break down. So again, in a small store, you're going to feel that so much faster and so much harder. A very simple example is things as simple as like a special order on a firearm. You've got a smaller location, you have two people on shift. One person comes in, says they want a special order a firearm. Maybe the person logs into a site, says, it's on allocation. We need to make a phone call to somebody else. Their shift ends. They didn't call the rep, right? They need to communicate that to the next person, or what happens? It falls apart. They write it down. They put a sticky on the register. Everybody else thinks it's been covered. Very simple task that ends in an upset customer that we can handle with just some proper communication channels. So if we do miscommunicate, there's a good chance we're going to lose customer trust. And everything we do is to drive customers into our building. Once we're there, we've got to make sure we maximize our opportunities with them. And we certainly communicate well and correctly to them. So, and that happens from knowing what's going on at the employee side. Breakdowns in inventory flow. That's a big one where you've got your receiving person in the back and they're telling people, don't touch these items yet. I haven't received them. Or, these are good to get pushed out to the floor. Making sure we have some sort of process in place where as inventory comes in, it goes through these stages and the receiving person is clearly communicating. It's, when it's in this taped off area, you don't touch it. When it's here, you can push it out. Things like that. Duplication of tasks and missed handoffs, right? That's another really big one. So if you're not clear in communication, you've got two people working on the same thing, maybe on the same side of the list, stepping all over each other, or you've got the alternate thing where, kind of like we just discussed, you don't hand it off to the next person and then it just sits there and dies. All of this just causes us all kinds of stress. It makes our lives more difficult with just 5 minutes a day, we're going to be able to tackle 90% of these issues that come up regularly. So yeah, Joel, is that all making sense to you? I mean, anything?
Yeah. So I do have a question here because I know we want to tap into your, obviously your experience, your couple of decades of experience
Mhm.
in retail and stuff. So can you share a time when a communication slip actually led to an unexpected win for the team? Because sometimes we may accidentally do things right.
Yeah, always good. So
So and that's usually how we find new ways to do things, because again, you talk about that culture. We get so ingrained in our culture that there's no room for change, but sometimes we may slip up and do something outside the norm that actually turns out to be a better process than we were
I
using. So do you have a story that maybe you can tell us that will highlight that?
I absolutely do. Where we lucked into success. We
There.
at one point we were back to receiving, right? So we're receiving items in a retail store. We had our process for receiving them, how we were trained on a system. This is not a Coreware system, by the way. And we're going through a very manual process. I mean, putting in every single item, doing every single piece, converting a file to a spreadsheet, very cumbersome experience. And we did it because that's how we were trained to do it. Well, we hired a new receiving person. The new receiving person gets back there and starts clicking buttons in the system, and all of a sudden realizes, wait a second, there's this thing that says EDI import, and I think we're doing a conversion of an EDI file. So he just starts clicking, and next thing you know, he's received a huge order that would have taken us 2 hours to do in all of about 3 minutes. So yeah, so we luck into success sometimes.
Well, I'm a student of humans, right? And when you go into an organization, you kind of look to see how different organizations work. And you know how I always refer to Coreware as an organism, not an organization, because an organization's set right in stone most of the time, whereas an organism will find a way to grow. You know what I mean? And so I think when you leave room to allow people to kind of think outside the box and maybe come up with better ways to do things, you're going to be in a better position. And that's just my 2 cents, because I've seen some really, established organizations do some horrible things because they're so set in their ways. So, Greg, so I think I said what I wanted to say, which was probably too much. I know we're still recording, so at least we're recording all of our words, even though maybe everyone can't hear it. The replay will be live immediately after we're done here, so it may be better then. So Greg, I'm gonna back out a little bit and let you carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And really quick too, I did want to caveat my last statement with there are times where because of a lack of communication we've lucked into good things, but more times than not, you luck into bad things, so communication will solve many of the problems and keep problems from even being created.
Right.
Um, so to kind of move on a little bit, there's four types of communications that you really want to focus on for retail teams. There's daily operational communication, priorities and planning, culture and morale, and then crisis, like urgent updates that need to be done now. So, to break those down a little bit, daily operational communications, these are things like who's working, are there any big pushes on inventory, that we need to get out? Are there any classes going on? Your range schedule being printed if you've got reservations, private lessons being printed. Basically, what you need to do to set the table on how we're going to do business. You need to have a clear way of communicating that. With operational communications, typically you're going to want to use some sort of electronic communication because it's what's going to keep your shift schedule. It's what's going to keep, record of who's working what for whom, all of that type of stuff. So I'd encourage you for those type of things to have some sort of electronic communication or something that you're printing off and putting physically in the facility. Next, planning and priorities, right? weekly sales goals. And we'll talk about, as we move on to the next section, we'll talk about the different ways you can communicate these items. Again, these are just the different types of communications. So you may communicate these in a verbal way, in a written way, in a physical way, multiple different avenues to, get compliance and get the message out there. But planning and priorities, weekly sales goals, that's something that I think every store should have, every associate should know about, and they should be attainable. So as managers, as owners, we've all got that, I guess, misguided belief that if you increase that sales goal number, the sales are going to increase. That's not what happens. It needs to be based in reality. There's obviously stretch goals, and we can certainly push those up. But if you put a weekly sales goal and you present that to your team, and it's just completely outside the realm of possibilities, that is going to have the adverse effect. That is going to demotivate your staff, because they're sitting there thinking, why am I even going to try if I know this number is that big? So that's something I very much encourage everyone to create a weekly sales goal. Doesn't have to be overly complicated. Look at your last 4 weeks of sales. Make any adjustments you need to make based on if the seasonality is going to change this week because of a holiday, because of a promotion, because of an event, but just make small tweaks that are improving your previous week's sales, and communicate that. Let everybody know what your sales goals are. And then every day, update everybody on where are we at on the weekly sales goals. So that way you can really create an environment where, Joel talking about the organism all works together and people are doing different pieces in order to achieve that sales goal, because not everybody is going to help the organization achieve a sales goal by selling. Some people are going to need to receive the product. Other people are going to need to display the product. Other people need to make sure that the pricing is correct on the product. Somebody else needs to make sure that the pricing not only physically is correct on the shelf, but it's physically correct in your system. So there's a lot of things every member of your team can do to push towards that weekly sales goal. So that's one of the big communication pieces that I can't stress enough. Another type planning thing you may want to communicate: vendor updates or events that are happening, if there's or new products, promotions, that type of thing. There's a new gun that just came out that there's, all kinds of videos on YouTube about that's what our customers are going to be talking about when we come in. If you just mention that in a morning huddle, excuse me, if you just mention that in a morning huddle, you're going to see the results of people knowing. And if they didn't know when you mentioned that new item, they're going to Google it and they're going to find out, and your staff's going to become more knowledgeable. So really important to just kind of drive what your staff is thinking about, drive, what you want the organization or the organism to be working towards. Culture and morale, another thing that's big that we need to communicate, right? So birthdays, big successes, when somebody does something well, your store met the weekly sales goal last week and John did, $20,000 in sales of the $50,000 goal or whatever it is, shout out John, let everybody know, hey, John did a great job. Thank you. That's going to encourage that type of behavior. And I know we all know this. I know it's all basic stuff, but it's very easy to forget. And I am of the belief from years of experience that these are the little things that matter to our employees. The employees who get hired, whether it's part-time, whether it's full-time, they're never going to care as much about the business as you do as an owner or as a manager or somebody that's really got a career. And now that's not everyone, of course. And that's not even a bad thing. It's just a lot of people, they want to sell guns because they like guns. They just want to be in the environment. They want to be there. If you can shout out the wins, the people that are doing exceptional work, I promise you more people are going to jump on and they're going to do it. So that's another big area where I think we will really see results. And then, just reinforcing the values of who you are, of who your store is. I really am a believer in creating a mission statement. It seems silly. And at the beginning, when I first heard this idea years and years ago, I'm like, who cares? It's a mission statement. But I'm telling you, what I saw in practice, if you have a good mission statement, it can become a beacon that you can go back to, and it can be your answer that will solve so many questions where maybe you did have a miscommunication. For example, at Coreware, I know their the mission statement is to help small businesses survive and thrive, right? So really, as we're making decisions, as you make decisions in the organization, you got to think from a Coreware perspective. Does this help organizations survive and thrive? And does this help small businesses survive and thrive, I should say? And how can we help businesses survive and thrive? So if that's the kind of beacon that you're always going towards, that you're always looking back on, it helps your managers, it helps your leaders, it helps your associates make great decisions, just pointing back to that mission statement. So that's something I'd encourage everyone to do, is create a mission statement, get it in front of people, reference it in some of these communications, and you will see positive results. The last kind of section of types of communication are going to be your crises. When things go bad, have a communication plan for how you get everyone on board with knowing the most updated information. Whether that's point of sales down, a piece isn't working. There was a safety incident on the range. Somebody had a misfire and shot through their hand, and here's what's going on. Or the local police called and said, hey, look out for this person to be coming in today. Gotten those before. So it's just very, very important to kind of know your different types of communication. Make sure you've got a path for each one of those types of communication. And again, it might be a multi-path situation where you're going to do it multiple ways. But yeah, that's kind of the 4 big buckets I would think that we want to communicate. Joel, any questions, any comments? I like to use Joel as my my audience gauge. Again, I talk too much, so I always like to check in with him.
No, you're not talking too much. But what I've done as the VP of communication at Coreware is I literally have, and judge me all you want, I have a bot, and it's ready to respond to whatever kind of communication we need to put out, right? So if there is I think during one of our, it was the accurate gun auctions, the everything went down. Remember, it was
that was when Google went down.
AWS, some of the AWS went down. I mean, it's just affected like the entire planet. And I immediately had something ready to go because I could access my bot. I explained the situation, and it gave me something that I could send out to people that were affected. Right? It was immediate. So I would encourage all of you to use these new tools that we have. To first off, you want your bot to be trained on your culture, on your organization, tell it everything that you can about it, and then allow that to help you craft messages that are dependent upon one of those 4 types of communication, right? So if there is an negligent discharge on the range, you've got something ready to go to all your members that may have been affected. Who knows, right? And it's very important. Your words are very important. I would say this as well. Have someone, and I'm not saying it may not be an age number. It may just be a presence, but have someone that's very, very mature that can kind of guide that communication, because a lot of people don't understand that our words carry a whole lot of power, right? And if you say the wrong thing, man, you could literally just turn people off, right? You could lose trust. So really think through things. It's not just a shoot it out there and let everybody just deal with it. It can't be like that. You really have to learn how to communicate. Communication is huge, right? And our words, even though our words only carry, I think we only communicate with our words like 30% of the time. The rest of it is our body language, our facial expressions, all this other stuff. But when you guys are sending out emails or you're communicating in a way like that, absolutely, really think things through. Greg, so I do have a question, because it sounds like you've dealt with some hiccups in regards to communication. It's like one of the things that you said is, somebody wrote the sticky note and put it on the computer and then went off. Right? He was off for the day. That brought me back to one of the things that you've talked to us about in the past, which is processes. Right? So if you have a process, everybody may not know that that's your little process of how you communicate, right? If you guys don't have a communication plan, where there's a way that everyone understands this is how I'm going to send the word to the next shift or whatever. Maybe create that, right? Because yeah, you did your job by leaving that sticky note, but not everybody thinks the way you do, right? And if there's
Mhm.
nothing set in stone in your organization on how, a process works, there is you're leaving room for mistakes to happen. So did you guys have anything like that at any of the big box places that you've worked, where I know that you've probably worked in some places where, man, a sticky note's not going to work. I mean, we've got to have a
Right.
process where, so let's say I did receive a gun, or I've got a gun. A customer called and said, "Hey, I'm going to be there in 3 hours to pick it up." Well, I'm getting off in an hour. I'll put this gun up here. Did you guys have a process to where you would send that communication to the next shift or the next person that was going to deal with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely right. You're 100% right. That I've seen the breakdowns happen, and I've seen it all the way from sticky note all the way to over-engineered typing up way too much. And I think you nailed it. The key part is just having a process. If you have a process that is followed, it will be successful. I mean, I've seen a successful process where somebody used a spiral notebook for to just say, hey, this came in, this is this person, I've emailed them, I've checked it here, once it's picked up, it's crossed off. Very, very basic, but guess what, if it's executed 100% of the time, it works. That is the process. So that's the and with chat gpt, with grok, all the ai tools that exist out there. My cousin, he has a side business that he's selling pies at festivals and fairs and all this stuff. And he said, I hired a couple of young kids because I'm too busy now and I want to do multiple fairs, but I have no idea how to tell them. I spent like 2 hours with him on Chat GPT and just wrote an entire SOP for his entire business. Just telling it, hey, you've been in the pie business for 30 years selling at festivals. You're an expert at all of these types of things. We need an SOP from start to finish on how to sell this, make these pies, sell these pies, count drawers down, the entire thing. And what it produced from just a very simple prompt was probably 90% correct already. And what we spent the next hour and 50 minutes doing was just going through every line of it and telling it to adjust, telling it to adjust. But at the end of it, he had an SOP that I'm telling you 10 years ago, Dick's Sporting Goods would have been thrilled to have. I mean,
Right.
it's amazing what can be produced. And I know we sound like a broken record, but utilize these tools, because it's not hard for all of us to have a process for everything. If you just start typing and then tell it, nope, don't like this, need to change this for us, very quickly you are going to have something that is powerful for your business. So yes, internal communication is certainly about all the things that we're talking about, but it's also communicating processes.
Right.
So certainly leverage the tools that exist to create those, because I've seen it both ways. And even though it's a pain in the butt and it's more work at the beginning, it makes such a difference in how your business operates and ultimately leads to profitability. And that's what we're all here for. I mean, yes, we love the industry. Yeah, we have a passion, but at the end of the day, we all want to make money, and
Right.
process will help us make money. There's no question about it.
Yeah. And when you're talking about those robots, I would say that I'm going to keep pounding this as well. Anyone can do anything as long as you can articulate your intent. So the more precise you can be with the intent of whatever it is that you're doing, the better those results are going to be. And I know that a lot of people were like you said, hey, it was probably 90% of it was good to go. If
Mhm.
you would have spent a little bit more time in the beginning articulating the intent, it probably would have been 99%, maybe just
Yeah.
slight tweaking. So really articulate your intent. And it goes back to communication.
Mhm.
You have to communicate with the robot just like you would a person, right? Because that's how it was built to communicate with you, right? Natural
Mhm.
language. So yeah, if you're going to do that, really learn to articulate your intent just like you would with a person, right? So if you're if the next shift's coming on and you want a certain number of things done before the next day's business, you have to articulate your intent. You have to tell people exactly what you want and how you want it done. So the robots are the same. But so go
Yeah.
ahead, Greg. I don't mean to keep interrupting, but anytime we start talking about this stuff just starts bubbling up.
No, it's great, and it helps me think of real world examples where I've experienced this stuff. It's interesting though too what you said. One tip I want to give to everybody that I used was I just started searching on how to prompt AI, and you can come up just that search. You can come up with a few different ways where it gives you suggestions on how to convey your intent as best you can.
Right.
So as a new person, if you never used AI, just start, how do I prompt AI? And they give you formats on exactly, this sentence do this sentence do this sentence do this, and
Yes.
playing with some of those, you'll get different results, and you'll kind of figure out which prompts should I use for which tasks.
Right.
So that was something that really helped me as I started kind of using AI more and more.
Right. And
um,
then when you have an
but
understanding of that, you can literally just put those instructions into an actual chat GPT, like a
yeah,
custom GPT, and
yes.
then it will write your prompt. You just give it basic instructions, and then it will write a prompt based upon that template that you really
Oh,
like. Like, I really
I
like
wasn't
this
even
template.
following you, Joel. That's really cool. I need to do that. So that'll be my next
Yeah.
step because I'm rewriting it every single time. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Hey, well, let me ask you this because obviously we know what happens when no communication happens, right? Things
Hmm.
fall through the cracks. What does over communication look like in a small store, and how can it hurt as much as under communication? So you've got
Yeah,
no communication, and then you got too much communication. So give me some real world examples of how you've experienced over communication.
over communication, right? It's just as bad. You get people to the point where they're like, what do I do? I've got 17 different directives. If everything's high priority, nothing is high priority. So, the perfect example I can go back to there is a big box retailer I worked for. They had a task list that they decided they were going to send from a corporate office, and they're going to send it down every single day, every department's tasks, everything they need to accomplish. Well, I think enough of us have worked in those types of environments to realize really quickly the guys sitting in an office 500 miles away don't have near the experience of the people in the stores. So this over communication of tasks of these are everything that's going on, and then we also need you to communicate back all of these stats when it comes to customer service surveys, when it comes to checkout times, when it comes to bathroom cleaning. I mean, even down to bathroom cleaning, like sending an update to corporate office of when bathrooms are cleaned. Well, guess what? When you're doing that, it shuts everything down. People get discouraged. It's a culture killer. They don't know what to do. And when people don't know what to do, they're going to choose nothing. I mean, they're going to choose, I'm going to
Right.
stand here and wait on the next person to come in. So you're 100% right, Joel. Over communication, just as bad as under communication. And that's why when we'll talk a little further, all these messages don't need to be long. 1 minute, 2 minute meetings just to give quick updates, high level updates. Here's where we are. One-on-ones certainly can be longer, but you don't need to go too in depth. You just need to let everybody know what's the direction we're going. How do we help execute it today? And how we do that, there's multiple ways to communicate, right? So there's written, there's verbal, there's visual. Those are kind of the three big ones. And on a lot of these types of things, you're going to want to do multiple paths. You're going to want to do multiple of these different formats. So, written, for example, that can be a whiteboard back up in the break room where every day you're just writing, the sales goal up there, and you're writing here the 3 tasks for today. Get all the ammo reworked and reshelved and repriced. Get ready for the weekend event this weekend by making sure we've got all of our stock pushed out from the back room. Those types of things are perfect to put up on a whiteboard. Texts, group texts. I'm a big fan of the group text at the end of the night, at the beginning of the day. Opener sends a group text to the leadership team or to, select group of people that are responsible for pushing that out, just with those same quick updates that are going to be written on the whiteboard. So over communication to me means too many items, not too many ways of communicating. So if you've got one message of those 3 items, if you've got it in a text, you've got it on a whiteboard, you've got it in a Google Doc that you're sharing, you also talk to everybody about it, in the morning, and you've got a checklist that you've got to go through. All those are fine as long as it's the same information. You just can't get 18 items instead of 3 or 4. Um, moving on, verbally, right? So verbally, a big thing I would recommend is team huddles. Team huddle in the morning, team huddle at shift change if possible. I get that shift change, it might be a little tougher, there might be staggered schedules, but either way, anytime anyone leaves, they should have at least one person that they're going to go just tell them, hey, here's what I've accomplished today from the whiteboard. Here's what I've accomplished today from the checklist. I'm now handing this off to you. I've seen where people sign even initial, like on a daily checklist of here's our tasks for today. Here's what I got done. Here's who I handed it off to at this point in time. You can or you can. It's all going to be depending on your specific store, if that makes sense or not. But I will tell you, when you've got I've seen very good results from having just simple checklists that are somebody's responsible and somebody hands off whatever they don't get done, and both parties just give a quick initial saying, yep, now this is mine. It just leads back to accountability and clear communication. So the last part that I want to talk about is visual. So visual is both internal communications and external communications, and a lot of times it can help. And where I get with that is, shelf talkers, prices, promo signs, things like that. We've all been there in the retail world where there's a sale going on and you may or may not know about it. Customer comes in and says it. We've got a breakdown somewhere else in one of our other things. Guess what? I got this nice 8.5 by 11 printed out and sitting up on the shelf. I can look right over there and say, yeah, guess what? All of our ammo is 10% off this weekend. I know that because there's clear visual signs throughout the store as well. Additionally, backroom signage. I'm big on backroom signage. So your inventory in the back room has a 0% chance of selling if it's in the back room. It needs to be out on that floor so it can be pushed out and be sold. So back in the back, having a process flow of received inventory with a sign that says received inventory, or backstock inventory, clearance inventory, whatever it is, but just going through with a printer and a laminator and just slapping up some signs, it's amazing how much that process will help you increase those efficiencies. So, small teams a lot of times will skip writing things down because they think, they're so tight and everything is everything is communicated so clearly and they're all, a family. I've heard that a lot before. And guess what? With my family, I probably communicate not as well with everybody else as I do with my family. You think sometimes your brother, oh, he knows, he's got it, he understands what's going on. That right. Can open you up to worse communication problems than it can in a big organization where it isn't as personal, it isn't as friendly. So again, say it, show it, write it, just communicate multiple ways, those messages that you want to put down. And the daily huddle, just really quick to touch on that should be like a minute or 2 minutes before you open the doors. Say you open at 10 o'clock, at 9:55, you just grab everybody together really quickly. You let them know, hey, we've got inventory in the back that needs to be pushed. Hey, we need to restock these ammo shelves. We need to push all of our guns forward and straighten tags today. That's our objective. Our daily sales goal today is $10,000. We'll check back in at 2 o'clock when we do shift change, find out where we're at, and hand it off to the night crew. Night crew and day crew can be a battle, and we've all had where day crew comes in, complains about night crew closing, night crew comes in, complains the day crew never straightens anything. That all gets fixed with this daily huddle. And if you have a daily huddle where people are communicating, the night crew day crew battles will be a thing of the past.
So I do have a question, because it kind of goes along with what you just said. But let's just assume that you only have 5 minutes per week with your team, right? Mm-hmm. How would you structure that time to cover all critical communication? I know you just briefly touched on it, but I want you to go a little bit deeper. Let's just say, hey, I've only got 5 minutes. And basically, it's sort of like an elevator pitch. That's really all you have, because if I go to work and I've been there for a year, my brain's like on autopilot 15 minutes after I clock in. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you get someone like me I'm just here. I clocked in. Just tell me what I need to do today. Right.
Yeah.
What would you spend your time on?
So if I have 5 minutes a week, and I'm really going to take that at face value, 5 minutes a week, I would do five huddles, Monday through Friday, 1 minute before we started. Monday, I'm going to say, all right, weekly goals, here they are. Any just big updates very quickly. Tuesday, I'm going to talk inventory. I'm just going to say, okay, here's the inventory coming in. Here's our inventory holes. Here's new product, whatever that may be. Wednesday, give a quick training tip, right? You've seen that your special orders aren't getting closed out correctly in the registers, and your accountant's complaining that you have all this revenue that's sitting there that hasn't been realized, but the inventory's been pushed. Teach people really quick. Hey, everybody, we're going to do the proper way to do a special order in 1 minute or less. I'm going to show everybody how to do it. You knock it out, and then really quickly you identify who knows how to do it, and you give them the task. You say, all right, Joel, you do these correctly. I need you today to talk to every single person and do a special order with them. Show them how to close one out correctly. Thursday, I'd probably move on. I'd focus on, the shout outs, right? So how do, this person did great this week. This person's killing it in sales, or, hey, we've got an issue where this customer has this problem. We need to get this solved. Just a quick update. And then Friday, I would just let everybody know, hey, here's what's coming up in the weekend. The weekend is all about sales, right? I'm a big believer. You don't have many tasks that aren't required. Like, the only tasks you should have is restocking. You shouldn't be doing deep cleaning on a Saturday or Sunday, right? So you should only be doing things that are going to push sales and the business forward. And then on the weekends, I know you said 5, I'm going to say 7. I'd still meet on Saturday and Sunday. And what I would do is just let everybody know, hey, this is our go time, everybody. All eyes on the floor, nobody in the back, everybody out here saying hi to every single person. Let's all maximize the ability that we have. Let's get these people in and let's take care of them. So don't overcomplicate things on the weekends. I might even say Friday, you don't want to have a ton of tasks. In the retail world, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is going to do 60, 70% of your business, just depending on the industry. So it's really important to capitalize on those days.
So anyone out there that's been in the military, how, well, this is when I was in, this is over 20 years ago. So maybe things have changed. Lots of wars have happened since then. But when I was in, there was this thing called commander's intent, right? So the commander tells you what his vision is and then allows those under him to carry it out in the way they best see fit, right? And it just kind of trickles down to the very lowest, down to the private, right? So you give the private, here's what I want you to do, figure it out, right? And usually people will figure out the most efficient way to do things because they don't want to waste their time, right? And we're very lazy by nature. Humans are lazy, so they're going to find an efficient way to do things that free their time up. So that's what I would encourage, all of you out there, that if you're passing down, and I think that will free up, and it will not free up, but it will cut down on over communicating, right? So if you're the store manager, right, and you've got all these different sections of the store that you're worried about, just assign squad leaders, right? So, hey, you're squad leader in ammo, and you're the squad leader of rifles, and you're the squad leader of pistols, and just make them, or not make them, but encourage them to be subject matter experts, inventory experts. You want them to know everything there is to know about their little area, right? And when you do that, when you give people that, they usually take ownership, right? If people feel like they have some skin in the game, they'll do a much better job. And then you just tell them, here's what my intent is for this section. I want you to figure out the most efficient way to carry out whatever my intent is, and then kind of guide them from there. But I've learned that really cuts down on communication, even though if you're in the military, you do spend a lot of time in formation talking about things, and you're always 15 minutes early. However, I did find that was the best way to get something done, right? You kind of offload the responsibility from you and let your team start pulling their weight, right? And they'll kind of surprise you with the ways that they'll come up with doing things. Phil B, glad you're here. And I'm sorry, Tony from Sanctuary. I know you're probably gone, but thank you for joining us today. He had to hop off. I do have a question though, Greg, and it just kind of,
Yeah.
this is, I actually read over your outline, and I just
Mhm.
wanted to come up with questions that, in case we don't get to everything, but is there a non-retail business you've seen that nails communication in a way that we could borrow from? So you see any other industry that has really nailed communication, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, Joel. No, nothing just jumps to my mind. It's not to say that it doesn't exist, but I think it more so speaks to that's why we're talking about it today. It's a challenge that just takes effort. So like I'm sure there's individual businesses that are absolutely crushing it, but entire industries, no, not that I can immediately think of.
Right.
That it's a challenge, it's a human challenge, right? I mean, no matter what we're doing, nobody can get inside of our brains. We have
No.
to be able to tell people what we're thinking. So yeah, I can't think of any good examples of somebody that's absolutely nailed it. Now, in the tech world, certainly, you can think of like where all communication is written in GitHub and it's all kind of followed through. Certainly, I'm sure there's some good examples there. However, they don't have the volatility of a retail environment, which is just another layer that makes it even more and more complicated. Because in most businesses, you're behind a desk, you're behind a computer, you've got time when that customer emails you, they don't expect a response in 3 minutes necessarily. They,
Right.
an hour later is okay. In the retail world, you're standing across the counter from someone live who expects you to be the expert. So those communication gaps get amplified so much faster than they do in other businesses. So even if other businesses feel like it's better, it's probably not. And that actually goes back to what I started the presentation on with the stat, right? 86% of people say communication is a problem in their business. That's where if something's going to break down, it's going to be because of communication. So I think it's a human problem.
It is. And also, again, because I deal with this on a daily basis as well. Anytime I deal with people, it's they kind of have an expectation that you know something that they know automatically, and that's a human thing because hey, well, you're on my team, you should know this. We should be on the same wavelength, and it's like, man, even you know twin brothers or twin sisters, they're not on the same wavelength. They think radically differently, right? If you give them
Right.
you give them both a task, they're probably not going to do it the exact same way. So I think what I would encourage anyone out there that wanted to communicate a little bit better is don't make any assumptions at all about anything ever. That reminds me of that Michael Scott where he was asking him on The Office. He says, "So what are you doing?" Like, and Michael Scott said,
Don't ever, for any reason, do anything to anyone for any reason, ever, no matter what, no matter where or who you are with, or where you are going, or where you've been, ever, for any reason whatsoever.
emptiest thing, but if you think about it, that's right. That's how he did so well. He just stayed out of everybody's way. But for you guys out there, I would just say, don't make any assumptions. If you tell if you tell someone something, they're not understanding it the exact same way that you thought you communicated it, and it works reverse as well. So that person may tell you something, and they're thinking they got the whole message across. It's like, I don't know if I could have said it any simpler. I've learned in my old age that holy moly, I can say something as simply as possible, and people still don't get it. So it's just a give and take in regards to communication. Just have a little patience with people is what I would encourage, and learn how to communicate, because once you learn how to communicate with all these different people, you will be the master of your own destiny, right? If you can
Mhm.
communicate effectively, you will be the master of your own destiny. So that would be and Greg, tell me if I'm wrong, don't
No, I
ever
agree
make
completely.
assumptions. Don't assume that someone just understands what you said because it made perfect sense coming out of your head. It's like, no, it's not
Mhm.
how people think. So,
No, and it's the old KISS method too, Joel. It's like keep it simple, stupid. Just keep your communication simple, set the pace with clarity. Especially if you are an owner or you're not on site or you have multiple locations, that's really important as well. And a tip for that is record it if you can't be there and you want to get the message across, or you're traveling, record a voice memo, send the voice memo to your manager on duty and have them play it. So then there is no game of telephone. It's coming right from you with a clear, concise message. Another thing, talking about over communication and not letting people kind of go and be the subject matter experts like you were talking about before. A big thing I think with communication going both ways is ask for recaps instead of micromanaging. So instead of calling that leader and saying, hey, I told you to do this, 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 and this, just say, hey, how did it go today? Tell me where you're at, and let them talk. And then from their conversation, you can then say, okay, well, what about this? Or, oh, that's great. Sometimes they're going to find things you didn't even realize was an issue. So I encourage you to, it's kind of like the old ask open-ended questions instead of giving the yes, no. Did you price the ammo? Yes or no. Did you, move these around? Instead, simply ask for the, excuse me, ask for the recap.
Right.
And then, just like you said, having patience, I think it's just important sometimes to be like, okay, what didn't go well today? What did we mess up? How do I help you improve it? And not in a way of, a gotcha moment, truly just what did not work today. That's as important to know as what did get done. It's what didn't get done and why didn't it get done. As managers, as owners, as leaders, it's your job to remove barriers, remove obstacles from your team in order to let them do what you're directing, what your mission is, what your organism's mission is, right? So that's really important because we see the big picture as the leaders in the business. Communicating that out is not always an easy task, and it's not always accomplished over one time or two times or 10 times.
Right.
So just continuing those constant messages are very, very important, and listening is very important because that internal communication is not just top down. It really needs to be bottom up as well. That's where you're really going to find the inefficiencies in your business, is if you get somebody who cares and they're telling you very openly and they feel comfortable enough to tell you openly, hey, this didn't work. This isn't going to work. I can't complete this because of this, this, and this. And that very well may be true. And, you may have been going, it may not have been getting done for months because somebody else just knows they can't get it done, doesn't know how, and doesn't feel comfortable enough to talk. So just really encourage a open office, a culture where your staff feels very comfortable and can give that type of feedback.
Right. Yeah. And again, I go back, I'll keep saying this because I'm telling you, man, as you get older, and Greg, you're getting there.
I'm on my way.
As you get older, you start seeing all these things that you start figuring out why things didn't work for you, right? And if you're honest with yourself, you'll start really critiquing your life and all the lessons that you should have learned. And one of the biggest ones, man, that I'm learning at this stage of my life is don't assume people know what you're saying just because you say it, and don't assume that other people think you understand what they're saying, because they may or they may not, right? And a lot of times that's where I usually drop the ball, is somebody will say something and it's like, here's how I understood it, and it's like, no, that's not at all how I meant it. And it's like, you have to have communication to learn those things. But as you go along, Greg, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the more you communicate with different people, those bonds thicken, right? And you will start being able to kind of read people's minds, or you kind of finish their sentences because you communicate so much, right? So
absolutely,
just keep the communication open is the most important thing. Just keep the communication open. Don't, there's no, when I was in the service, it's like, there's no stupid question except for the one that you don't ask, right? So don't close the door to communication, because those people that you're communicating with as leaders of your stores or your ranges or whatnot, that's your magic right there. Those people out there are the magic that will get you to where you want to be, or get your business to where you want your business to be. And Greg, I don't know if you realize or not, but as we were talking, everything that you were talking about, it's literally applies to the robots as well, because you're saying, yeah, and
Yeah.
allow them to talk and allow them to kind of, they're going to tell you things that you didn't even know and blah blah blah. It's literally the robots, all this AI stuff. It is based upon communication. You just have to know how to communicate, and the more effective you are at the communication, the more humans will be able to work with you, and your mind's going to be blown, because it's like, oh my gosh, they're doing such a great job. It's the way you're communicating. You're pulling out of these people or these robots what you want based upon how you're communicating. So think about what you're saying, really, again, articulate your intent. That's like the most important thing in the universe is if you want someone outside of your own head, if you want to make something outside of your own head move, whether it's ammo to be put from this part of the back room to that part of the back room, learn how to communicate the intent, right? Articulate your intent. So, Greg, I don't know where we are in your because sadly I've been looking at the little antenna of death, and I've been saying, "Oh, please don't drop."
No, I think we've covered most of it. I actually, we've jumped around, and that's great. It's been a good conversation. I think the key thing I just want to end on is I've talked about a lot of different things here, and what do you do sitting in your all shoes as a manager, as an owner, as an operator? And I the best path forward, in my opinion, is just pick one or two of these things and start them and do them consistently. Whatever you decide to do, don't start it, do it for 2 weeks and stop it. Commit to doing something for 2 months. Give yourself 60 days. If you're doing it and you don't see results, throw it away. Your team may not respond to that type of communication, but don't do it 1 week, skip 2 weeks, do another week, skip a week, do another week. Do it consistently on a schedule, and you will see results. And it's not overly complicated. If you're going to do one thing, I'd say set up daily huddles. That will be the biggest piece you can do very easily, very quickly. Keep the message down to 3 to 5 items. Don't make it any bigger. Make sure it's tasks and messages that can be accomplished. And truly, if you just do that and nothing else, you will see an improvement in your efficiency and your morale, and ultimately in your profits.
And celebrate those successes, right?
Absolutely.
Celebrate those
100%.
successes, because that's we all thrive no matter who you are. If you're the store owner or you're the lowest guy on the totem pole, we all love to celebrate our successes. So if you guys are getting some good success out of these communication tactics, celebrate them, man. Have pizza day, do whatever. Just really keep feeding that culture so that it changes into one where it literally is on autopilot. Like the more you communicate in the beginning, not saying like more as in tons of minutes a day, but the more effective you communicate in the beginning, it probably kind of falls off, because you're going to need less communication as you go along, unless someone new comes in, because you're going to start vibing with everybody and you're all on the same page and you're not even saying anything. You're just kind of going along. So communication, man, it's huge. I wish that I wish we had more time, Greg, but we are literally already over an hour. And I know 45 minutes of that was technical difficulties.
Yes.
And I apologize for that. But we are going to be sure to make sure you're signed up for our weekly newsletter. It's Core Weekly. I'm going to take everything that Greg has said here and write an article, and it's going to have some really good points of everything that he talked about. And you can take that, guys, take the article, put it in the robot, and say, I want you to come up with, if you're already using ChatGPT and it knows your store's culture and the way you guys operate. Take this article, load it, and say, I want you to pull everything out of this article that you can that pertains to how I can do my job better. And watch your mind get blown, because this is the world we live in now, man. You don't have to, spend hours a day reading anything. You can literally spend hours a day doing what you want to do, which is moving more product, and allow all these technologies to do all the heavy lifting. So, Greg, do we have a subject for the next Retail Mastery?
We don't. I mean, if anybody has anything they want me to talk about, welcome any suggestions. But if not, we'll get something out here in the next day or two of what the next topic will be.
Yeah, and we'll schedule that, and we've got all kinds of things coming up. What all do we have coming up? Right, we're already getting ready for SHOT Show.
Yeah, it's
Like,
that time of year.
it's that time of year. I think our next show is going to be NBS, Nation's Best Sports. We're going to be in Dallas next week, some of us. So if you're at the NBS show, make sure you stop by booth 812, I believe it is, and say hi. We've got, what else do we have? I think that's the last significant show until SHOT Show, but SHOT Show is going to take a lot of time. We've got some really huge things going on for SHOT Show that we think you guys are going to like, and it's just going to be a fun time out there in Vegas. If there's still a Vegas, my gosh, have you seen some of the news, Greg? Like, nobody's going to Vegas anymore. Like, what's happening?
Hey, it should be cheap. I was glad to see it. It should be cheap, right? We should all be eating. I want $7.99 prime rib back, Joel. That's my goal.
Maybe we can make that happen. My gosh.
Yeah.
That would be good. Maybe we'll have multiple core feasts
There we go.
for this SHOT Show. I think with that, I'm trying to think. Oh, we are trying to get into Sports Inc. I believe that's another buyer group. Sorry, Greg. If you guys, anyone out there, if you have an in with Sports Inc., please let me know, because that's how we got into NBS. One of our great customers kind of put in a word for us. And so we would love to exhibit at Sports Inc. So I think with that, I am going to roll us out, because I think maybe we lost Greg. Did we lose you, Greg?
No, I'm here.
Your video's frozen. That's horrible.
Bummer.
It's frozen in a good way. You're smiling. It's a huge
right,
smile.
good.
We love it.
Awesome.
So guys, with that, Greg, do you have any closing words?
No, I just wanted to say I had best dad ever up behind me today, so I feel like a victory. My son gave me best dad ever trophy just out of the blue, so it's a good day.
Well, if you think about it, does he have anything else to compare it to?
I tell him he's the best son of all time.
No, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for your patience, for putting up with our technical difficulties. I still don't know what's going on. This is the first webinar on StreamYard that I haven't been dropped from. I still see that little thing threatening, but I think hardwiring it in has allowed me to stay. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us. I think we're going to end it here, right? And let everybody listen to this masterpiece of a song that the robot wrote based upon what we covered today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Every shift, every word, every move we make in this small space, there's no room for mistakes. One signal missed and the trust starts to fade. One voice unheard and the plans misled. This isn't big box silence. We're built on constant guidance.